Welcome to Africa Unveiled. Ayinla, the legendary tales.
The conclusion. Have you watched the first episode? It was epic. The second was adventurous. Kindly smash the subscribe button, and on the notification button. The journey from a brotherhood's coastal sanctuary to Lagos was only a few hours, but for Ayo, it felt like crossing into another lifetime. The air was thicker. The skyline, once familiar, now loomed like silent judges over him. He stepped off the train wearing the same civilian clothes he departed in weeks earlier, but inside, something ancient had shifted. The moment his feet touched the ground at Ojota Terminal, a strange dread wrapped around him. It wasn't paranoia. It was a presence. He noticed him at first in flickers. A man reading the same newspaper on two separate buses, a woman in Ankara print who seemed to be always two shops behind, and a silver car with no license plate that followed him from the market to his apartment. When he got home, his door was locked, but the aura inside had changed. The silence was too loud. The air too still. Drawers were closed, but dust was displaced. Someone had searched his sanctuary. On his bed, a red envelope lay without a crease, freshly placed. Inside it was a single card with gold embossed lettering. Speak, and your bloodline ends. No signature. No address. Just a clean, absolute weight of truth. He dropped it and turned toward the framed photo of his late parents and brother on the wall. The stairs in the picture seemed more aware now, like they too were watching the room. That night, he visited the graveyard in Ikoyi, standing before the tombstones of those who never got to see the truth he was unraveling. He spoke aloud, not to summon spirits, but to silence his fear. Is justice worth more than legacy? He asked the wind. A rustle answered, not from the trees, but from within him. He opened his laptop and pulled out the recovered pages from Senator Onye's journal, hidden within a hollowed-out Bible. The tales inside still burned. Secret summits in Igbank, blood baptisms, politicians who rose after sacrificing sons, and prophets whose miracles were paid for an unborn destinies. He couldn't tell where myth ended and memory began. What terrified him most wasn't that people would doubt him, but that some would already know and approve. The brotherhood wasn't a myth. It was a machine, and it had outlasted generations by staying invisible. Until now, as the sun rose the next morning, Ayo stood shirtless on his rooftop, feeling Lagos wake beneath him. Behind every billboard, he now saw symbols. Every church dome reminded him of Obaro's chant. Every political poster of the chamber's reflections. The ritual hadn't ended. It had only relocated. And here, in the modern city, the test wasn't survival. It was silence. But deep down, another voice whispered, if they fear truth, they've already lost. He turned back inside. It was time to decide whether to burn everything, or become the fire. Kindly smash the subscribe button, and on the notification button. Pastor at Dewey's Cathedral stood like a golden fortress in Lekki Phase 1, its towering cross gleaming under the midday sun. The plaza brimmed with worshippers. Some bowed in tongues, others wept on their knees, hungry for miracles, for prophecy, for hope. Ayo wasn't here for any of those. Dressed in a plain black kaftan, he walked through the manicured gates with no appointment, no blessing, just a chilling knowledge of what lay beneath the marble. His fingers trembled around the flash drive in his pocket, loaded with pages from Senator Onye's journal. Pages that mentioned Pastor Dewey by name, as a custodian of the covenant. Not a prophet, not a man of God, a gatekeeper. Ayo was ushered into the pastor's glass-walled office faster than he expected. The guards didn't even ask for identification. It was as though they'd been expecting him. Pastor Dewey looked every bit the spiritual mogul, draped in a white agbada, golden rings on 3 fingers, eyes like coals that never cooled. Ah, Brother Ayo, the brotherhood speaks highly of you, he said, smiling, as if they were long-lost friends. Ayo's heart froze. He knows. Dewey gestured to a chair. You've come to talk, not accuse. Sit. Let's both pretend you still believe in free will. Ayo swallowed his nerves. He pulled out the journal pages and laid them gently on the glass table like sacred offerings. I know about the blood oaths, the midnight invocations. You don't perform miracles, You manufacture them. Dewey chuckled, flipping the pages like a seasoned reader revisiting an old favorite. Miracles, he said, are just well-funded illusions for those who need reasons to worship. You think a church grows to 80,000 members in 5 years by grace? No, my son. It grows through sacrifice, networking, and strategy. He leaned in closer, his tone darkening. We don't just pray. We position. We don't speak in tongues. We speak in currencies. Ao recoiled. And the people? The poor who trust you. Pastor Dewey's eyes narrowed. Faith is a product. Pain is the market. And if I don't sell them salvation, someone else will sell them suffering. I merely give them a dream worth dying for. He stood and walked to the wall, revealing a large portrait of himself flanked by 2 robed figures, the same red and black attire Ao saw during the brotherhood ritual. They think I save souls, but I protect power. Before Ao could respond, Pastor Dewey placed a sealed envelope in his palm. Here's the final choice. Leak those pages, and watch your sister's body surface in the Lagos Lagoon, or join us fully. Control the airwaves. Rewrite truth itself. Ao stared at the envelope. It was heavier than paper, almost pulsing. As he left the cathedral, the voices of the choir drifted toward him like incense masking blood. The war wasn't between good and evil. It was between those who pretended to be holy and those who knew they weren't, but had the power to act like it. Kindly smash the subscribe button, and on the notification button. That night, Ao sat alone in his dimly lit apartment, the lights off, save for the glow of his laptop screen. The sealed envelope from Pastor Dewey lay unopened on the table beside his microphone, and the dusty camera he once used to record underground exposés. The weight of silence filled the room, yet his mind was screaming. The screen displayed 2 unfinished articles. One titled, The Brotherhood, Africa's Silent Puppeteers. The other, A.O. Fulana, appointed head of Continental Broadcasting Alliance. Each article came with its own consequence. One threatened exposure, the other promised elevation. His fingers hovered over the keys like a priest choosing between fire and incense. Outside, the city buzzed with life. Car horns, laughing lovers, street preachers proclaiming rapture. But inside, A.O. felt like he was being hunted by decisions. He reached for his bottle of water, but noticed a small smear of red on his fingers. Blood. A tiny nick had opened on his thumb, but he didn't remember cutting it. Ritual or warning. In African traditions, a blood trace on a gift before opening meant betrayal. The envelope pulsed again in his vision. He recalled his journalism mentor's words from years ago. In Africa, truth is not enough. You need protection or you need power. Sometimes both. He lit a candle and stared into the flame, whispering to himself, if I publish this, they'll come for me, for my family, for anyone I've ever loved. A.O. had once believed truth was the sword that cut through the darkness. But the deeper he went into the Brotherhood's labyrinth, the more he realized the sword itself was forged by the same hands he wanted to expose. The politicians he once saw as enemies now felt like foot soldiers. The real warlord sat in dimly lit chapels, in private jets, in recording studios, on pulpits, in hotel suites where decisions were made with handshakes and goat's blood. He remembered his mother's warning before she passed. The higher you climb, the more the gods notice you. Stay in the shadows, my son. But the shadows were now following him. His face had already appeared in whispers across Abuja, Nairobi, and Accra. The boy journalist who uncovered the cursed burial grounds. The madman who accused a megachurch pastor. The betrayer of the Brotherhood. And now, he was being offered something terrifying. A seat at the table. No more running. No more threats. No more fear. Just power. The envelope held coordinates to a secret summit in Mauritius, a place where final initiations were made and members reborn. If he went, there was no turning back. He picked up the dagger from his desk drawer, the one he kept since his father's passing. He looked at the reflection of himself in its silver edge. The pen or the dagger, he whispered. But in today's Africa, even the dagger could be dipped in ink, and the pen, often laced in poison. One would kill his soul, the other his legacy. But he also knew, If he didn't choose soon, someone else would choose for him. Kindly smash the subscribe button, like, and on the notification button. The air in Mauritius was too clean, unnaturally sterile, like the breath of a place that had forgotten how to rot. A.O. stepped off the private jet arranged for him by the Brotherhood, wearing a bespoke ash-colored suit stitched in silence. His invitation bore no name, only a black emblem, a serpent curled around an hourglass. The coordinates led him through a lush, unmarked estate on the edge of Lemorne, Brabant, the sacred mountain once known for harboring escaped African slaves. Now, it housed the real slaves, the kind who traded chains for cufflinks and prayer for contracts. Beneath the lush facade was a grand subterranean chamber carved into the mountain's rock, lit by golden flames dancing atop oil-filled urns. There, the elite assembled, politicians from Africa's most unstable democracies, celebrities whose fame had no roots but grew like weeds, mega-pastors who spoke in tongues on Sundays but spoke to spirits on Fridays, tech founders, oil barons, even a queen from a West African kingdom. A.O.'s entrance barely made a ripple. He was no longer an outsider. He was expected. As he stepped forward, a robed woman handed him a ceremonial necklace, crafted from obsidian and teeth, some human. "Welcome, Brother Falana," she whispered, not blinking once. The room smelled of rare incense, spiced blood, and warm lies. On a raised dais stood the Grand Arbiter, a tall, androgynous figure cloaked in deep crimson. Their face was veiled in gold mesh. "Tonight, we do not make new men," the voice echoed. "We make immortals. For those who control the screen, control the spirit." The ceremony began not with prayer, but with testimonies, each member confessing the first soul they sacrificed to join. One gave up a child, another a nation's hope. One woman, a Nollywood icon, confessed to orchestrating her own twin sister's death to gain stardom. No tears, only applause. A.O.'s turn came. He stepped forward, the obsidian pendant now warm against his chest. "I sacrificed my innocence. I gave up truth," he declared. "I buried it beneath my ambition. And in its place, I built a voice loud enough to drown nations." A thunderous gong rang. The Grand Arbiter raised a blade. "Then let truth stay buried, and let your voice become the law." They sliced a thin line across A.O.'s palm and let the blood drip onto a scroll bearing a single phrase in Latin. "Veritas est sub potestate nostra." Truth is under our control. When the ritual ended, A.O. was led into a chamber with walls covered in screens, news broadcast from around Africa. On a black marble table was a dashboard. "From here, you choose what millions will believe, what they'll fear, what they'll forget," said a voice behind him. It was Pastor Dewey, now unrobed, a cigar in his mouth and eyes glowing faintly red. "Welcome to the Council of Narrative Architects. Truth is no longer what happened. It is what you decide happened." A.O. looked at the glowing buttons and thought, not of power, but his late mother. Her voice echoed faintly. "Remember, the gods are watching, even if the people are blind." Kindly smash the subscribe button, like, and on the notification button. A.O.'s life as a journalist felt like a distant memory, a dream that had dissolved the moment the Brotherhood had handed him the key to Africa's media empire. No longer did he investigate stories. He created them. From his high-rise office in Lagos, he could make or break a politician's career with the press of a button. He could silence a protest with a fabricated interview or ignite a civil war with a single scandal. The screen in front of him flashed with live feeds from across the continent. Each moment malleable, every truth bendable, shaped like clay by his will. He no longer needed to chase stories. He had become the story. The power he now wielded made his previous ambition seem naive. The truth wasn't just his weapon. It was his plaything. Every broadcast he produced felt like a performance, a carefully choreographed dance for an audience that didn't know it was watching. He spun narratives that kept people entertained, distracted, and subjugated. A scandal here, a death there, a tragedy, an injustice. He knew exactly when to show the tears and when to mask them with bright smiles. The masses were like children in need of constant stimulation, and he had the remote control. But with every broadcast, something gnawed at him. It wasn't guilt. It wasn't remorse. It was emptiness. He was winning the game, but losing his soul. One morning, as Ao sat in his private office overlooking the ocean, a video came across his screen, an old clip from one of his first underground investigations. It showed a child, barely 6 years old, recounting the abuse of an influential politician. Back then, Ao had been the hero, bringing light to the darkness. Now, he was a man who could keep such stories buried, ensuring that the child's voice would never reach the airwaves. But the memory lingered. The images of the child's innocent face haunted him in a way the power of the Brotherhood never could. "You've made your choice, Ao." Pastor Dewey's voice echoed to the intercom, snapping him back to reality. Ao didn't reply. He just turned the chair toward the large window, watching the sun dip below the horizon. In the distance, a fleet of black SUVs rolled toward the compound. The politicians, the celebrities, the silent partners who benefited from his control. They were coming for their scheduled consultation, their daily dose of manipulation. For a moment, Ao wondered how long it would be before they started manipulating him. He had the power to create empires or destroy them. He could elevate the most vile to sainthood and drag the innocent into the pits of despair. But as he adjusted the settings for yet another broadcast, a flicker of doubt passed through his mind. He realized the tragic truth. He had stopped being a journalist long ago. He had become the puppet master, and the strings he pulled were now the chains that bound him. What did it matter if he was rich, famous, and feared, if he had lost the only thing that had ever mattered to him? His integrity. But the truth was simple. There was no going back now. His hands were already stained. Kindly smash the subscribe button, like, and on the notification button. It was a rainy evening when the inevitable confrontation arrived. The thunder seemed to echo his inner turmoil, rattling the glass windows of Ao's penthouse. Outside, Lagos was as alive as ever. Cars honking, people rushing the downpour, but in his world, everything had become a distant hum. The media empire that had once seemed like a kingdom now felt like a prison. The Brotherhood had elevated him, but the power had taken its toll. Ao no longer recognized a man in the mirror. His once sharp features had grown hollow. His eyes no longer gleamed with the passion of a journalist seeking truth. Instead, they were cold, reflective of a man who had chosen to become a master of lies. That night, the Brotherhood had called him to another gathering, but this time there was a shift in the air. The Grand Arbiter had summoned him directly, and as Ao arrived at the secluded mansion, the door was already open. No ceremony, no greeting. He stepped into the darkened hall, the atmosphere thick with anticipation. As he walked deeper into the mansion, his footsteps echoed in the silence, and he felt the weight of the decisions he'd made. He had no choice now. He had crossed a threshold from which there was no return. He had become everything he despised. But even that realization didn't free him from the iron grip of the Brotherhood. In the center of the room, the Grand Arbiter stood, flanked by the faces of those who had molded Ao into this new, monstrous version of himself. They all looked at him with a mixture of reverence and disdain. Pastor Dewey, with his cryptic smile, whispered, "You've done well, Ao. You've learned the art of true power." But Ao wasn't listening. His eyes were drawn to the massive screen in front of him, broadcasting a live feed of one of his latest headlines. An assassination, masked as an accident. He had orchestrated this story. His hand had twisted the narrative, shifted the public's perception, and in doing so had condemned an innocent man. But the real cost was still to come. Ao's pulse quickened as he realized that the Brotherhood was no longer merely a tool. It was the chains that bound him. They didn't need him to wield power anymore. They needed him to own it. As he looked at the faces of the people he'd once called allies, he knew that the price of immortality wasn't just his soul. It was everything he had ever known. They had given him everything. Wealth, fame, control, and now they demanded total submission. No longer could he walk away from the web he had woven. If he wanted to remain the man who shaped the destiny of millions, he had to stay chained to them forever. But Ao was not stupid. He knew that immortality in the Brotherhood came with a heavy cost. His autonomy. He could no longer speak for people. He only spoke for the Brotherhood. As the lights dimmed, the final test loomed. The Grand Arbiter stepped forward, placing a golden mask before him. The mask of a new identity. Ao Falana is dead. The puppeteer is born. The mask was cold to the touch. He had once believed that he could control the narrative, but now he was the narrative. The price of power, it seemed, was not just his freedom. It was his very humanity. He was a puppet, and his strings had been pulled. The room fell silent as Ao stared at the mask, realizing that to continue down this path would mean to lose everything that made him human. But in that moment, he understood that it was no longer a choice. He had already crossed the point of no return. The puppets had been set in motion, and the master of the strings had become a prisoner of his own design. As the lights flickered and the room seemed to close in around him, Ao made his decision. He put on the mask. Thanks for this following me to the end. Kindly subscribe, like, share, and on the notification button.